Hi. We're going to talk about privacy today. But first, intro.
Follow your passion might be a perfect question to ask and might have a perfect answer when interpreted right.
Let's start tracking which stocks can actually go up and go down, or which stocks have an advantage with the vaccine coming out.
Why it would have been more expensive to fake a moon landing back in those days. It's quite an interesting video to watch.
The economic activity created from the App Store alone is worth $500 billion.
So let's move on to the next question.
Man, it was too easy.
Too easy, no? Why didn't you answer?
Ladies and gentlemen, my data on the back end tells me that only half of you subscribe to these videos. The other half is just like basically taking all of this for free. So what I'd suggest is scroll over to the subscribe button, click on it, and then click the bell icon so that I can actually take more of your data. I'm just kidding. YouTube doesn't give us that much data. But I do know that a lot of you are not subscribing. So please subscribe. It makes the world a better place or something like that. Actually, it makes you smarter. And I think it's worth subscribing, not for me, but for yourself, because you outweigh the content that's already available on YouTube, which is not very smart. Here, you actually get to make yourself smarter. Today, we are going to talk about privacy. We're going to talk about how there's this war on the internet about whether privacy is important, whether it's not important, how does it work. And I feel like everyone's weighing in on it, everyone's putting their opinion in on it, but most of these people don't know what they're talking about and can't see more than 1 year into the future. So in this episode, let's talk about privacy. But first, let's talk about the local punching bag. That's right. Let's talk about Donald Trump. As you can see, Donald Trump is extraordinarily private now on Twitter. No profile picture, no cover photo, no tweets, and it says in nice bold letters, suspended. I think his account has been deleted at this point. Look, I'm not sure what to feel when I saw that, right? Because for any institution to be able to ban a president is scary, at the very least. Now, the CEO of Twitter, Jack, he went on record to say that he takes no pride in banning Trump. He says that, well, we did what we had to because we had no choice. And Trump is right now going through his second impeachment trial. So nobody likes him, but I still feel like the cornerstone of democracy is that even if you hate somebody, you still give them that ability to speak, right? You can't just throw them out. And of course, Trump has caused a lot of damage, right? The last, when he pushed people to go to the Capitol, 5 people died, among which there was 1 officer, right? Now, obviously, it's not just Twitter that deleted his account. It's also Facebook. They permanently banned his account. And, I think there was this video somewhere I saw on the internet where Spotify has banned his account. What is he going to do? Like make podcasts about, I don't know, like everyone's just said we'll ban his account. And then I saw Shopify ban his account. And I was like, what is going on now? Now these people are just like competing with each other to say, I also banned Trump. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, he's been banned from everything. I don't think he has a voice anymore. They've silenced his voice, which is a scary precedent to set. But here's some stats for you. Biden had 81 million votes. That's right, 81 million people voted for Biden. That's 51.3% of the voter turnout. Trump won 74 million votes, right? That's 46.8% of the voter turnout. And imagine this. even though Trump won just 74 million, or you can say just, but it's still more than most other presidents in the past, right? So it's ridiculous how it's not just Trump's voice that they've silenced, they've also silenced the voice of technically 74 million people. If you don't believe that's true, you need to look a little further, right? There's an app called Parler, right? That's Parler, which was essentially a competitor app to Twitter, right? For conservative voices. And beat this, it hit number 1 on the App Store as soon as Trump got banned. Conservative voices said that, look, we are being silenced, so we're going to go to our own app. Google and Apple, both stores, both the iOS App Store as well as the Android Play Store, the Parler app became number 1. And then immediately, they were shut down. Not just by Google and Apple, but also by Amazon Web Services. And the Parler CEO basically said, we're more or less dead now. So these social media giants are not just silencing the president's voice, they're silencing the voice of literally everybody else. Now, I don't like Trump, right? But you cannot just say, bro, 46% of this country, I don't want to hear them. We should not give them a chance to be heard. Even if they want an app of their own, not allowed. That's stupid, right? Like now you're just manipulating them to believe what you want them to believe. You are sitting in your own echo chamber. So it's a scary precedent. And that's why I went on Twitter and I said, guys, I didn't believe in decentralization for social media platforms for a very long time, but now I do. I do because I feel no one party should have the right to moderate or silence voices or to decide. Because look, right now, all these companies, they're not tried as publishers. If you ran a newspaper magazine, if you were, say, Entrepreneur India or something like that, or Forbes, and you decided to run an article about something, right? You are responsible for that article, right? If you say something that's not true or something that incites terrorism or something, you are responsible for it. But Twitter is not responsible for anything that happens on its platform, right? You could say something evil, but Twitter is basically given, immunity from that, which is not fair. Right? Technically, if Twitter has the right to throw out whoever they want to, because that's the right the publisher has. They have the right to refuse. Then they're also responsible for everything else that's gone on, right? And Trump is not the first person that's incited violence on Twitter. There are plenty of people who've done it from all across the world, and Twitter doesn't, put its hand in there. So either you fully moderate or you don't moderate. You can't selectively moderate based on, what you believe is good and bad. So it's a bad precedent. That's why I think decentralization is awesome. Decentralization basically means that no one party has control over Twitter. It's basically somebody makes the platform, puts it out there for everybody to use, and everybody kind of runs their own node to power the engine, like Amazon Web Services. And all these people together decide to interact with each other. There's no moderation, which is technically how all of us, you and me, use Twitter anyway. So it's not a big deal. It only makes a difference when you're at the tens of millions or hundreds of millions scale where moderation actually matters to you. All right. Can we bring up the next slide, please? It's our old friend, Mr. Elon Musk, who's made an appearance on most of our, Thursday scenes. Now, look, somebody posted a comment, and I read the comments, right? Sometimes I read the comments. Sometimes they're just horrible, so I ignore them. Sometimes I read them. One of the comments was that if you had waited a little longer to do this episode, you would have found out that Musk is the richest person, and then you would have shouted at that, right? Like you would have had your opinion on that. Well, Musk did become the richest person, and now he's number 2. And everyone in the world is like, oh, number 1, number 2. And I've said this a million times, it doesn't matter. This is speculative value. Right? He lost $13 billion worth of value in like a couple of days. Right? That's how he went from number 1 to number 2. You think those $13 billion are actual cash where, he can pull it out of his pocket? Not true. Right? So you have to really understand how this works. It's speculative value. We don't know if Tesla is overvalued or undervalued. You cannot put your number on the exact specific value that Tesla, okay, this is the perfect value of Tesla. And based on that, you'd calculate Elon Musk's net worth. You don't do that. Because you don't do that, these numbers are all rubbish. You should not be paying attention to them. And neither does Musk, because the minute he learned that he was number 1, he tweeted, "How strange." And then he said, "Back to work." He doesn't care. Jeff Bezos doesn't tweet and say, I'm number one now. Oh, I'm number two. I'm number one now. Oh, I'm number two. He doesn't do that because it doesn't matter to them and it shouldn't matter to you either. Get off your ass and get to work. But there's one thing that Musk did, right, which shook one company which wasn't supposed to be shaken. Musk posted a tweet, and can we go to the next slide, please? Musk posted a tweet, and he said, use Signal. Right? Just one tweet. And this was obviously based on WhatsApp's new policies, and we'll talk about WhatsApp's new policies, but I want to tell you what this tweet did first. So there's a company called, obviously, Signal, which is the main company, and then there's another company called Signal Advance, which is not related to Signal the messenger, right? And Elon Musk was talking about Signal the messenger. And unfortunately, the shares of Signal Advance went up, showing you that people are not very smart when it comes to investing in the stock market. They just look at signals. I like the word signal because they look at the signal. They say, Elon Musk said something, must go up, so everyone invested. And there were some very smart people who knew that this stock would go up, even though it's not related, and then invested because they knew it would go up. So a lot of games being played on the stock market, and a lot of it was driven by this person named Elon Musk. And look, even the Tesla shares are, obviously, right? When Elon Musk talks about Tesla, Tesla shares go up. Do you know why? It's because Elon Musk is a massive influencer. He's got about 25, the last time I checked, I don't know what the number is today, but he had like 25 million, followers or subscribers on Twitter, followers on Twitter. He's got massive influence. And a lot of us, don't look at that kind of influence. He sold a flamethrower, for God's sake, right? And he sold out a flamethrower. He sold out shorts. So we know that whatever Elon Musk says comes true because he has that distribution and that reach. That, I think, is more important than his technical skills when it comes to making money. His technical skills improve humanity. His distribution skills make money, right? And I think he knows that. But why? Why did he say use Signal? We'll find out in the next slide. Okay? This is an apology. In the past, YouTubers used to issue apologies by crying on screen and saying, I shouldn't have done that. WhatsApp issues apologies with money, or, in the old WhatsApp uncle lingo, in the newspaper, right? So as you can see, front of 4 or 5 different newspapers saying, hey, you got our privacy rules wrong. And I have an opinion on this that most people don't agree with, right? Everyone's going crazy about privacy, but I have something to say about this, right? And you don't have to agree with me, right? You could have a different viewpoint to life, but I'm just going to tell you from my viewpoint, and I'm going to tell you how, I think it's just important to know that I think people are over-exaggerating this, right? So WhatsApp made these new rules. They got backlash. You saw these full, newspaper ads. And I saw this article saying that, WhatsApp discriminates between Europe and, Indian users. That's because obviously Europe has data privacy rules and you have to adhere to those rules, and you can't run the company without adhering to those rules. In India, those rules don't exist, right? That's why WhatsApp has said, hey, we're sharing some data with Facebook. But what do they share with Facebook? Here goes. Firstly, they share with Facebook because Facebook says we want to improve our services. Okay, fair enough, understood. Mobile phone number, basic information you give when you're starting your account, which is fair. Every app takes that, okay? Then it also collects and shares user activity, how often you use it. And by the way, Instagram also collects user activity. Almost all apps collect user activity. If you're on the app for 2 hours a day, you want to share it back, says, okay. WhatsApp says to Facebook, hey, this set of users use it for 2 hours a day. That's a fair, who cares how many hours you use WhatsApp a day? It's not like some crazy information, right? Features you use, which is also fine. And these are I marked this in red. Your profile photo, your status, and about information. See, the thing about profile photo is Facebook, when you made a Facebook account, when you make an Instagram account, whatever, you put photos up by yourself, right? So what's the big deal in putting one photo on WhatsApp, which you're anyway putting publicly, right? Where all your friends can anyway see it. So I don't see the big deal around the profile photo thing there. And of course, your status, which is supposed to be public. It's a public status that you're putting up. And the same people who are like, oh, WhatsApp is horrible, are saying this on Twitter, where they're putting up technically a Twitter status, right? A tweet is essentially the evolution of the status, right? About information, everyone puts up a bio. You put it on all social media platforms. On WhatsApp, it'll probably nobody puts up a full bio on WhatsApp anyway, so it's not a big deal. And all of this data is anyway being shared. You make a YouTube account, you're putting all this data, you're anyway sending it back to Google. Device level information like what device you use, your mobile network, IP addresses, that's all completely fine, because they're probably going to use that data to make the service better when you use 2G or have really bad connection. They've already been doing this to a certain extent, right? And we want that reliability and connectivity anyway. And this data is not going to matter so much to you. And this data is collected with your permission. You can always just set the permissions to off, and WhatsApp can't collect this data. You can still use the tool. The one thing that I added again in red, and this is something for you to kind of note, chats between you and a business are end-to-end encrypted. WhatsApp says that once the message is received by a business, suppose you're chatting with a business account, it will be subject to the business's own privacy practices. And this is goddamn obvious, right? If you send a message to Rahul's Bakeries and you say, I want one bread, obviously Rahul's Bakeries, the guy who's using, the WhatsApp phone on their end will just be like, hey, this guy wants bread. Remember, his name is whatever, Rajesh, and he wants bread. He ordered this bread. Next time he'll probably order the same bread. Anyway, they're looking at their data, right? So here, earlier they could take screenshots. They could show it to their, their employees, their bosses, whatever. WhatsApp just says, hey, that's going to happen, which is not a big deal. But I've anyway marked it in red because I've said, look, that's the only place where your data might leak, where you communicate with the business and, that becomes a problem. Like I said, Facebook already has this data. This is not a big deal. Twitter has it. YouTube has it. You're putting up full videos on YouTube, right? That's far more data than what you'll put up on WhatsApp, like much, much, much more. WhatsApp does not ever take data from the messages you send. It does not ever take data from the images you send each other. That's all not there. And WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted, just like Signal, the app. Look, what are you guys doing on WhatsApp? Exactly. Why is everybody going crazy about this? Are you guys selling drugs? Terrorism? Are you part of the mafia? Because I don't understand. Like 99.99999% of the cases, there's nothing you're going to be doing on WhatsApp that's dangerous, right? And even if you are, you're just really small fish. And if you're massive fish, which means you're selling like thousands and thousands of kilograms of drugs, then you probably shouldn't be on WhatsApp. Because if you get caught, then the government can kind of intervene and say, hey, WhatsApp, can you send me his chats? Right? Which is a kind of risk case. And of course, don't chat to the business account and say, hey, I'm selling X, Y, Z, or I'm committing this act of terror. That would be stupid if you're doing that. But the truth is, 99.9% of people are not going to do that. Right? So for most use cases, WhatsApp is fine. You're looking at the edge of the edge of the edge case, which is never going to happen in your life. Signal. The interesting thing about Signal, the app, I think you'll find on the next slide. The interesting thing about Signal, the app, is that it was started by one of the co-founders of WhatsApp. In fact, the financial structuring was funny, right? It was a loan from Brian Acton to Signal, which is to be repaid in 2068. It's a non-profit foundation. And all of that is really cool. I think even Musk donated to Signal. All that is really cool, but I don't see the advantage apart from just, hey, privacy. Right? Because your entire ecosystem is there on WhatsApp. Right? Your friends are there, your family is there. Moving all of them to Signal is difficult. Right? And somebody like me who actually does care about privacy on platforms like, say, Twitter, where, not privacy, but like, I don't want my account to suddenly be deleted on Twitter. I don't care so much about, my privacy on a daily basis. All of you want that little bit, you want like 100 followers, right? You want 200 followers, you want to grow, right? You give away your privacy. Every content creator knows this. There is no such thing as privacy in the world in the future, right? Especially as we become more and more and more connected with each other, right? There's no such thing as privacy. Own your flaws if you have any. And WhatsApp's obviously never going to take your data and share it with your friend and say, oh, this guy eats, orders pie at night. That's never going to happen. In fact, the food delivery apps already have this. We don't make a furor over it. We don't, shout on the streets and say, hey, this food delivery app is taking this data, because they never tell you, right? WhatsApp had the courtesy to actually come out and say, these are the things we're doing. Yeah, so I want to show you about who's the real threat. in this entire ecosystem. I'm not going to talk about Signal anymore because it's pretty much the same. One thing I like about Signal is you can send notes to yourself, from what I've heard, but it's not a very big deal, right? Can we go to the next slide? I want to show you the real risk. Now, one thing I want to say is that in this case, in the Ria and Sushant Singh Rajput case, I don't know who's wrong, who's right. We don't have that information, right? What I do know is that the charges that were originally pressed on Ria are not the charges that are currently pressed on her. What I'm about to say is not about Sushant Singh Rajput or Ria at all. This is not about the case at all, right? We're not talking about who's right, who's wrong. Anybody could be right, anybody could be wrong. What I'm saying is this is about the media, right? The people who we consider thugs. We think that the thugs are, WhatsApp or somebody who can steal your data and whatnot. But think about Ria's case, right? I actually want to take you back to Ria's case. How did it work out? She had a phone, she had chats, she was whatever they were talking about. They could be talking about anything. But was it Facebook that gave the government her data, her WhatsApp data? No, it wasn't. The CBI, the NCB, they actually came to her, they took her phone. Right? They unlocked it with her permission because, she wanted to say, hey, I'm innocent. And they were able to go through the data. That's my question to you, right? The real problem in this entire scenario with privacy is if somebody really wants to know your data, they can come in, bash you in the teeth, take your phone, tell you, hey, give your password. Especially if you're selling drugs or doing terrorism, whatever, that's a more likely case. That's a very, very likely case. The old news media, which is on TV and, your hundreds of channels that keep screaming the entire time, they have very little data on you. But yet, have you seen their investigative ability? They will literally find out. I think you can go to the next slide. There's one image with where they're doing that. They're actually finding out who she made calls to, getting your telephone log from your, Airtel or Vodafone. You can actually do that. That's the bigger risk to privacy. Anyone with distribution today can ruin your name, take your data, investigate you. It's the people that are the problem. The large-scale technology, no one's going to look at individual accounts. The scale is so massive. They have hundreds of millions of accounts. They don't care about one particular account. It's just so small. We cannot calculate the ratio of 1 divided by 100 million because we're human beings. Our brain cannot compute and understand how negligible that is. Right? It doesn't even matter. And the thing is, today, if you want to make someone look like a villain, it's not that hard to do. I mean, in Ria's case, the original charge was something else, and then eventually they're like, we have to find a way to incriminate her, let's find something else. Right? So if you're, or you or your family, whatever, there's at least one thing that you've done that is possible to make it look really bad in the eyes of the public. It's not that difficult. Right? And obviously, in Ria's case, things that are not related. I think you can go to the next slide. Okay, look at that. It's not even things that are not related with sensationalist titles. Those are the people that are ruining privacy. And they're ruining essentially at random. Anyone who's reasonably famous, to appease the mass public, they kind of pull out that data and kind of, shoot you down. Now, again, I'm not saying whether these people are good or bad. What I'm saying is the CBI and the NCB, which are supposed to be the, apex of privacy, these are technically like the Secret Service, right? By technically like the Secret Service, they need to have that level of privacy. How did they leak that information to the media? Those are the questions that I ponder over, not, things like WhatsApp that actually don't read your chats or see your the pictures you send each other. Right? So yeah, that's my thoughts on privacy. And obviously in the future, I spoke about this on the Trifecta of Reality yesterday. I think in the future, we will not have anything like privacy. We will all be very connected. We will all be very vulnerable, and everything that we have, all our flaws, all our good points, everyone will know everything, right? And that's how humanity actually comes together. Instead of being in these small bubbles where we don't like somebody else, we just shut them down. That's not going to happen, right? So that's my thought, at least on the future. That's like I said in the beginning of this episode, these are my opinions on these events and how I see it. Other people can see it differently. Now, Remember that in every episode or most episodes, we give away a box. I've told you my side of the story, right? I want to hear now one counterpoint to my side, because we should always, like I said, Facebook, Amazon, Google, whatever, they just didn't want to listen to the other side. They shut them down. But I'm not going to do the same. Give me one point as to why we should protect our privacy, or where we should protect our privacy. And if I like your point, if I agree with it, you win this box worth anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 rupees. Give me a second. Let me open the live chat. Okay? Are you ready? Your time starts now. One reason or one point where privacy is important. Come on. Come on. Come on. By the way, Varad asks, wait, how is the daylight in his room? Is he living out of India? Where are we living, Martin? We're actually living somewhere in the United States of America. Yeah, right outside the window I can see the Capitol burning. Hey, don't do... I'm just kidding. You have... How much time do we have left? 56 seconds. Come on. Come on. Seconds. Awesome. So the winner was actually one of the guys who posted an answer immediately. Like literally, this is the first answer that I saw that came out as the best answer. Sometimes it pays to be early. A lot of people wait and see, oh, what are the answers other people are posting so that I can post the same. I picked the earliest one. The winner of this box, and again, there are no losers. There are no winners or losers. This is just, you won the box because you were lucky. Your internet speed was good. You weren't using BSNL, so you got there on time. The winner is Manav Lakardive. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. Manav Lakardive. And he says, protecting privacy for financial transactions. Dude, when you start a bank account, you actually put KYC data. You put your face, you put your passport, your address. You put far more data when opening a bank than when, messaging other people. If I had to ask myself what is more important, using the internet and, all these social media platforms that grant you opportunities, or starting a bank that allows me to just, store money for a bit, I think the internet is more important. Without opportunity, you can't make money. Right? And obviously, today you can make money, maybe say, starting a farm or, working on a farm, whatever. So finding those opportunities are going to be done purely through the internet. So I think, why is it that on the internet you can play it anonymously, and privately, whereas with banks you have to provide all your data. And this is changing with crypto, of course. With Bitcoin, even though to buy from an exchange you still need to put in your data, you can transact without having to put in your data, right? So it's people only see addresses. There can be a little bit of trace, but it's quite hard to trace if you really wanted to, not trace some, or if you really wanted to cover your tracks. basically when you send it to an exchange, it kind of gets jumbled up, your address. And I feel like we are moving towards a more private banking infrastructure. But then again, I would like the ability for banks to reverse the error. If I make some mistake, transfer money to the wrong person, sometimes you want that, you want centralization. You want the bank to say, okay, I'll reverse that transaction. You made a mistake, fine. Because we're humans, we make mistakes. But at the same time, I think financial transactions, privacy is important. If I transfer, if I say go to the store and I buy, medicine for my father's heart failure or my own, some issue, and I pay a certain amount for it, I don't want, that data coming into the bank, this thing, and the bank saying, hey, he spent this much money on XYZ. And that already happens. The bank knows everything I spent money on. Yesterday, when I bought Red Bull, the bank knows I spent money on that. They have literally all that data. It's on their server. Right? So that, I think, should be more, at least, it's very easy for a bank employee to sit down and say, oh, this guy's spending money on Red Bull. They can actually do that. That is where the real risk is. And Manav, you win this box for identifying that risk and telling us that that's where you want your privacy, which I think is fair for everybody. Subscribe, like this video, send us your love and comments, because that's why we do this, to be honest. And yeah, hit the bell icon. That's it for me. Please play the extra while I look out the window and watch America burn.